Okay. All right, devotees. Hare Krishna. So, I need my assistant to tell me. Welcome, devotees, to day number 72 of our Bhakti Shastri seminar on Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, and we're really getting to the end of the first canto. I mean, Bhakti Vaibhava. Bhakti Vaibhava, Krishna. I'm getting too old. Anyway, we are in the last stages of the first canto. And if I'm not mistaken, where are we at?
Starting text 18, chapter 18.
18. Okay, right. 17. Is it? Of the 18th chapter?
Yes.
The 18th chapter. Okay. So here we go. We're getting ourselves together here. And let us, though, devotees, let us begin. Yeah, it's the 18th verse of the 18th chapter tonight. Let us chant our prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadeshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so devotees, yes, we're in the later part of the 18th chapter. Later part, sort of like that. And so Sutta Goswami, there's been the whole confrontation, of course, with Kali. Yeah, the whole confrontation with Kali, my gosh. And anyway, so it's sort of a bit of a switch in theme, really, in the 18th chapter, in that we're coming up, the 18th chapter is titled Maharaj Parikshit Cursed by a Brahmin Boy. Yeah, so up until the end, basically, of chapter 17, couple of chapters or thereabouts were about Maharaj Parikshit and Kali and how he dealt with Kali. So now this is really going on to such an important part of the Bhagavatam. The same Maharaj Parikshit is about to be cursed by Shringi, the son of Shamika Rishi, cursed to die within 7 days or after 7 days by the bite of a snake bird. And then, of course, I'm sure you're all familiar with the basic idea that then Maharaj Parikshit went down to the Ganges or the Yamuna, it says in some places, and many, many devotees and sages gathered. And he wanted to know, what is the duty of a person who is just about to die. And there was some debate and back and forth a little bit, sort of thing. But there was nothing conclusive until Shukadev Goswami appeared on the scene. Yeah, so anyway, we're leading up to that. We're still leading up to that. All right, so this section then is chapter 18, verse 18 to 23, I think it is, 23, right? So let's read through the verses. Sri Sudha Goswami said, "O God, although we're born in a mixed caste, we're still promoted in birthright simply by serving and following the great, who are advanced in knowledge. Even by conversing with such great souls, one can without delay cleanse oneself of all disqualifications resulting from lower births." All right. And verse 19. "And what to speak of those who are under the direction of the great devotees, chanting the holy name of the unlimited, who has unlimited potency." The personality of Godhead, unlimited in potency and transcendental by attributes, is called the Ananta, the unlimited. 20. "It is now ascertained that he, the personality of Godhead, is unlimited, and there is none equal to him. Consequently, no one can speak of him adequately. Great demigods cannot obtain the favor of the goddess of fortune, even by prayers. But this very goddess renders service unto the Lord, although he is unwilling to have such service." That's pretty amazing. Yeah, these great demigods, they cannot get her mercy, even by their prayers and trying so hard. But the same goddess of fortune is serving the Lord, although he doesn't want that service, but she feels it's so valuable. 21. "Who can be worthy of the name of the Supreme Lord but the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna? Brahmaji collected the water emanating from the nails of his feet in order to award it to Lord Shiva as a worshipful welcome. This very water, the Ganges, is purifying the whole universe, including Lord Shiva." 22. "Self-controlled persons who are attached to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna can all of a sudden give up the world of material attachment, including the gross body and subtle mind, and go away to attain the highest perfection of the renounced order of life, by which non-violence and renunciation are consequential." Verse 23. "O rishis, who are as powerfully pure as the sun, I shall try to describe to you the transcendental pastimes of Vishnu as far as my knowledge is concerned. As the birds fly in the sky, as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows." Wow, it's really amazing. These verses are truly incredible. All right, so here we are. Verse 18. Sri Sudha Goswami said, "O God, although we're born in a mixed caste, we're still promoted in birthright simply by serving and following the great who are advanced in knowledge. Even by conversing with such great souls, one can without delay cleanse oneself of all disqualifications resulting from lower births." Okay, so Sutta, He didn't take birth in like a pure Brahmin family. His father was a Brahmin. Yeah, Ramaharshana. So, yeah, some mixed caste arrangement, lower type of family, uncultured low family, Prabhupada says. But because of good association, the disqualification of the low birth was washed away. And Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada points out, Lord Chaitanya, he accepted this principle. And he delivered many who are from low births and made them acharyas. Yes, Haridas Thakur. I mean, he may be Lord Brahma, that's one thing, but he was born as a Muslim, or in a Muslim family, put it that way. So Lord Chaitanya said that any man, whatever he may be, whether a Brahmin or Sudra by birth, or a householder or mendicant in the order of society, if he's conversant with the science of Krishna, he can be accepted as an acharya or guru, a spiritual master. Okay, yeah, this is quite a purport here. Second paragraph. So Sutta learnt the science of Krishna from great rishis like Shukadeva and Vyas. And he was so qualified that all these sages, and they're all, or so many, or probably all, born Brahmins and trained Brahmins, but they were still eager to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from him. Because, well, Sutta Goswami was a very famous sage. He spoke many of the Puranas. Yeah. So anyway, Krishna consciousness, the science, has to be heard from authorities. And if you then preach it, having heard it like that, you become still more qualified. So Sutta had both advantages. He'd heard from great authorities, now he's preaching it authoritatively. So in this way he was free from the disqualification of his low birth. Right. So, Prabhupada makes an interesting point. This verse definitely proves that Srila Shukadeva Goswami did not refuse to teach Sutta Goswami about the transcendental science, that, not like a full Brahmin. Nor did the sages of Naimisharanya refuse to hear from him. And they knew all about him. They knew all about him. Right. So this means that even thousands of years ago, what to speak of today, there was no bar to learning or preaching transcendental science because of inferior birth. I mean, that's a really important point. And Prabhupada puts it so well. So Prabhupada makes a really interesting point. The rigidity of the caste system became prominent 100 or so years later when the number of Dvija Bandhus increased. Yeah. So then Prabhupada makes the point that Lord Chaitanya has revived the original Vedic system, that it doesn't matter about birth. That's the original Vedic system. And therefore he elevated Haridas Thakur to be Namacharya. Yeah, although he was born in a Muslim family. So yeah, then the third paragraph, this is the power of pure devotees. Ganges water is accepted to be pure and purifying, but great devotees can purify degraded souls just by being seen by them. And what to speak of association and hearing and like that. So, Prabhupada makes an interesting point. Lord Chaitanya wanted to purify the world by sending preachers over the world. And Prabhupada says, it is up to Indians to take this up. Yes. So, anyway, then there's something about mental diseases being worse now than bodily diseases. So it's, I don't know what the context is though. What did I say? What did Prabhupada say? The mental diseases of the present generation are more acute than bodily diseases. So it's quite fit and proper to take up the preaching of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world without delay. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Mahatmanam Abhidhana also means dictionary of great devotees, or a book full of the words of great devotees. Such a dictionary of the words of great devotees and those of the Lord are in the Vedas and allied literatures, specifically the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, verse 19. And what to speak of those who are under the direction of the great devotees, chanting the holy name of the unlimited, who has unlimited potency. The personality of Godhead, unlimited in potency and transcendental by attributes, is called the Ananta, the unlimited. So Dvija, Prabhupada says, Dvija Bandhus, less intelligent, uncultured men, born in the higher castes, but uncultured. They try to argue against lower caste men becoming Brahmins in this life. They say birth in a Sudra family happens because of sinful activities, and you have to complete your karma in the lower birth. Haribol. So in answer, Bhagavatam says that one who chants the holy name under a pure devotee at once becomes free from the karma of a lower birth. So a pure devotee doesn't make offenses while chanting. To chant under a pure devotee is offenseless chanting, which is transcendental, and therefore can at once purify from all previous sins. And if you're doing offenseless chanting, it indicates that one has fully understood the transcendental nature of the holy name and is thus surrendered to the Lord. And Prabhupada mentions 1866 Bhagavad Gita, of course, such a famous verse, that when we surrender to Him, we're delivered from all sins. All sins. So the holy name and the Lord are one, and therefore the Holy Lord can protect, the holy name can protect devotees from sin, just like the Lord can. 1866. In this way, it can undoubtedly deliver one from the disadvantages of low birth. Right, so Prabhupada concludes the purport. The Lord's unlimited power is extended on and on by the unlimited expansion of the devotees and incarnations, and thus every devotee of the Lord and incarnations also can be equally surcharged with the potency of the Lord. Since the devotee is surcharged with the potency of the Lord, even fractionally, the disqualification due to lower birth cannot stand in the way. What do you think of that? That's pretty amazing. I mean, pretty clear, shall we say. So, right, verse 20. It is now ascertained that He, the personality of Godhead, is unlimited and there is none equal to Him. Consequently, no one can speak of Him adequately. Great demigods cannot obtain the favor of the goddess of fortune even by prayers. But this very goddess renders service unto the Lord, although he is unwilling to have such service. Amazing. So Prabhupada says, the Parameshwar, Parabrahman, the Lord, has nothing to do. No one's equal to him, no one's greater than him. He's full in himself. He's got nothing to accept from anyone, even from Lord Brahma. So, yeah, as Garbhodakshay Vishnu, he begets Brahma from his navel, lotus stem, not in the womb of the goddess of fortune. So these things show his complete independence and perfection. Yeah. That he has nothing to do doesn't mean he's impersonal. Rather, he's so transcendently full of inconceivable potencies that simply by willing, everything is done. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, he is called therefore Yogeshvara, or the Lord of all mystic powers. 21. Who can be worthy of the name of the Supreme Lord but the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna? Brahmaji collected the water emanating from the nails of his feet in order to award it to Lord Shiva as a worshipful welcome. This very water, the Ganges, is purifying the whole universe, including Lord Shiva. All right. So again, Prabhupada addresses this point of the demigods, who are they and what's their significance. And Prabhupada says that the conception of ignorant people of many gods in Vedic literature, of there being many gods, is completely wrong. How's that? That's completely clear, isn't it? Completely wrong. Krishna is one without a second, but expands in many ways. Different types of expansions, plenary, and they're parts of parts, like that. And then there's the jivas, who are not so powerful. Brahma is generally a jiva, and Lord Shiva is generally sort of a medium level, you could say. Something like that. Lord Shiva is the medium between the Lord and the living entities. So in other words, demigods like Brahma and Shiva are never equal to or greater than him. The goddess of fortune and the demigods worship him. So who can be greater than him? And he empowers them. Yes. So Prabhupada mentions there are 4 Vaishnav lines, which of course we know very well. Brahma Sampradaya from Brahma, Rudra Sampradaya from Shiva, Shri Sampradaya from Lakshmi, and the Kumar Sampradaya from the 4 Kumars, and they're still going on, basically. So, verse 22. Self-controlled persons who are attached to the Supreme Lord Krishna can all of a sudden give up the world of material attachment, including the gross body and subtle mind, and go away to attain the highest perfection of the renounced order of life, by which non-violence and renunciation are consequential. Yeah, consequential basically means they're just consequences. They just naturally follow. From that attachment to Krishna. Yeah. So Prabhupada makes a very important point. Only the self-controlled can gradually become attached to the Lord. And self-controlled means not indulging in sense gratification, sense enjoyment more than necessary. But those who are not self-controlled, they're given over to sense enjoyment. And even dry philosophical speculation is subtle sense enjoyment for the mind. And in general, sense enjoyment leads to the path of darkness. Yeah. So how then? How is one going to achieve self-control? That's a good question. By just stopping the senses, what do you think? Oh, he says no. He's right. But by engaging them in devotional service. And such people who are doing like that, engaging in devotional service, they can just suddenly give up their homes and everything for devotional service. And this is the Paramahansa stage, which is rare, even amongst the liberated. So here in this world, everyone's envious of everyone else, but Paramahansas are non-envious. They love everyone, seeing them in relation to Krishna. So real renunciation means dependence on Krishna. Generally, everyone is dependent on someone else, but actually everyone is dependent on Krishna's mercy. But when you forget that dependence on Krishna, you become dependent on the conditions of material nature, and that's not nice. So, in other words, real independence means complete faith in the Lord, complete dependence on the Lord, actually, without dependence on the conditions of matter. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, this Paramahansa stage is the highest perfectional stage in Bhakti Yoga, the process of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Verse 23, O Rishis, who are as powerfully pure as the sun, I shall try to describe to you the transcendental position of Vishnu as far as my knowledge is concerned or able. As the birds fly in the sky as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. Okay. So, absolute truth, of course, is unlimited. And no limited living entity like us can know the unlimited by our limited capacity. And he is simultaneously impersonal, personal, and localized. Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Bhagavan indicates the object of transcendental loving service by his fortunate associates, the pure devotees. And he's so transcendental, his pastimes can only be partially estimated by great learned devotees. So therefore what Sutta Goswami is saying is very good, that I shall try to describe to you the transcendental pastimes of Vishnu as far as my knowledge is able, like birds fly in the sky as far as they can. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Factually, only the Lord himself can describe himself. And his learned devotee also can describe him as far as the Lord gives him the power of description. That is transcendental, devotees. So, okay, now the next section, I suspect, is it the last section or what is it? No, it's not. Oh, there's 50 verses. Krishna. Why, this is a major chapter. All right, anyway, let's just carry on, push on. So, okay, here we go. The section, Shringi curses Maharaj Parikshit. From verse 24 to verse 38. Let us read the verses. 24 and 25 together. Once upon a time, Maharaj Parikshit, while engaged in hunting in the forest with bow and arrows, became extremely fatigued, hungry, and thirsty while following the stags. While searching for a reservoir of water, he entered the hermitage of the well-known Shamaka Rishi and saw the sage sitting silently with closed eyes. 26. The Muni's sense organs, breath, mind, and intelligence were all restrained from material activities, and he was situated in a trance apart from the three. What's this? Sorry. I think there's a mistake here. Apart from. Apart from the three. Okay, no, it's correct. Apart from the three. It actually is referring to the three states of consciousness, wakefulness, dream, and unconsciousness, having achieved a transcendental position qualitatively equal with the Supreme Absolute. That's Shamaka Rishi. 27. The sage in meditation was covered by the skin of a stag, and long compressed hair was scattered all over him. The king, whose palate was dry from thirst, asked him for water. 28. The king, not received by any formal welcome, by means of being offered a seat, place, water, and sweet addresses, considered himself neglected, and so thinking, he became angry. 29. O Brahmins, the king's anger and envy directed toward the Brahmin sage were unprecedented, being that circumstances had made him hungry and thirsty. 30. While leaving, the king, being so insulted, picked up a lifeless snake with his bow and angrily placed it on the shoulder of the sage. Then he returned to his palace. 31. Upon returning, he began to contemplate and argue within himself whether the sage had actually been in meditation with senses concentrated and eyes closed, or whether he had just been feigning trance just to avoid receiving a lower kshatriya. Okay. 32. The sage had a son who was very powerful, being a Brahmin's son. While he was playing with inexperienced boys, he heard of his father's distress, which was occasioned by the king. Then and there, the boy spoke as follows. 33. The Brahmin son, Shringi, said, "Oh, just look at the sins of the rulers who, like crows and watchdogs at the door, perpetrate sins against their masters, contrary to the principles governing servants." Whew. Yeah, he's really, got a high opinion of himself. 34. The descendants of the kingly orders are definitely designated as watchdogs, and they must keep themselves at the door. On what grounds can dogs enter the house and claim to dine with the master on the same plate? 35. After the departure of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead and supreme ruler of everyone, these upstarts have flourished, our protector being gone. Therefore I myself shall take up this matter and punish them. Just witness my power. 36. The son of the Rishi, his eyes red hot with anger, touched the water of the river Koshika while speaking to his playmates and discharged the following thunderbolt of words. 37. The Brahmin's son cursed the king thus, on the 7th day from today a snake bird will bite the most wretched one of that dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit, because of his having broken the laws of etiquette by insulting my father. 38. Thereafter, when the boy returned to the hermitage, he saw a snake on his father's shoulder, and out of his grief he cried very loudly. Wow, it's really amazing. All right, so here we go. Section entitled Shringi Curses Maharaj Parikshit, verse 24 to 38. First of all, verses 24 to 25. Once upon a time, Maharaj Parikshit, while engaged in hunting in the forest with bow and arrows, became extremely fatigued, hungry, and thirsty while following the stags. While searching for a reservoir of water, he entered the hermitage of the well-known Shamika Rishi and saw the sage sitting silently with closed eyes. So, Prabhupada gives interesting purport. Supreme Lord is so kind to his devotees, to his pure devotees, that at the right time he calls them to him and thus creates auspicious circumstances for the devotee. That's how this should be taken. And that's how Parikshit takes it. Yeah. So Maharaj Parikshit was a pure devotee. So, this is a very crucial point. So there's no reason for him to become overwhelmed by hunger and thirst. And just consider, starting the next day, he fasted and didn't sleep and didn't drink for 7 days and 7 nights. So it is a special arrangement of the Lord. So, but by the Lord's arrangement, even such a devotee can get into such a position to help with his renunciation of worldly activities. Yeah. So we have to give up all our attachments to go back to Godhead. And when a devotee is too attached, the Lord makes some special arrangement to cause indifference. The Lord never forgets his devotee, even if the devotee is engaged in worldly activities. So sometimes he creates an awkward situation and the devotee becomes obliged to renounce. Like there's just nothing else you can do. You just got to renounce, and so you do. So the devotee understands what's happening, that it's Krishna's arrangement and mercy. But others, non-devotees, may think, oh, it's a bad situation. So he was going to become the medium for the revelation of Srimad Bhagavatam by the Lord, as Arjuna became the medium for Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. So if Arjuna had not become overwhelmed by illusion, Bhagavad Gita wouldn't have been spoken. Similarly, if Parikshit hadn't become fatigued, etc., by illusion, Srimad Bhagavatam wouldn't have been spoken. So this is a prelude to the circumstances under which Srimad Bhagavatam is spoken for everyone's benefit. And Prabhupada says, I don't know if you noticed how the verse began, once upon a time. Prabhupada says, the prelude therefore begins with the words, once upon a time. Alrighty, verse 26. The Muni's sense organs, breath, mind, and intelligence were all restrained from material activities. And he was situated in a trance, apart from the three, wakefulness, dream, and unconsciousness. Yeah. Having achieved a transcendental position qualitatively equal with the Supreme Absolute. So Prabhupada makes the point, it appears the Muni was in some sort of yogic trance, achieved either by jnana or yoga or bhakti yoga, one of the three. Yeah. So, yeah, okay. So in Bhagavad Gita we have information of the gradual development of perception from matter to the living entity. Yeah, to a living entity. The material mind and body develop from the soul, and being influenced by the modes, we forget our identity. So Prabhupada's looking at the different processes, it seems. The jnana process speculates about the reality of the soul, but bhakti engages the soul in activities. And the perception of matter is transcended to step by step more subtle states. Senses are transcendental to the mind, and then to breathing, and then to intelligence. Beyond the intelligence, the soul is realized by mechanical activities of the yoga system or practice of meditation, restraining the senses, regulating breathing, and applying intelligence in order to rise to the transcendental position. That's all Prabhupada's evaluating the consciousness of Shamika. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, this trance stops all material activities of the body. The king saw the Muni in that position. He also saw the Muni as follows. 27. The sage in meditation was covered by the skin of a stag, and long compressed hair was scattered all over him. The king, whose palate was dry from thirst, asked him for water. So there's just a very short purport here. Let me just read it. The king, being thirsty, asked the sage for water. That such a great devotee and king asked for water from a sage absorbed in trance was certainly providential. Otherwise, there was no chance of such a unique happening. Maharaj Parikshit was thus placed in an awkward position so that gradually Srimad Bhagavatam could be revealed. And 28. The king, not received by any formal welcome, by means of being offered a seat, place, water, and sweet addresses, considered himself neglected, and so thinking, he became angry. So Prabhupada, there's 2 paragraphs to the purport. Prabhupada begins by talking about the laws of reception in codes of Vedic principles. This is like, these are laws. Yeah. Even if an enemy comes, he must be received nicely. Shouldn't be given a chance to understand that he's come to the house of an enemy. So when Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna came to Jarasandha, Jarasandha gave them a royal reception. Bhima was meant to fight with him, but still they got a very good reception. And in the evenings, so the fighting went on for days, and in the evenings they would sit as friends. And during the day, they'd fight to the death. Yeah. So this law enjoins that a poor man must offer a straw mat to sit on, a glass of water, and some sweet words. Prabhupada concludes the paragraph by saying, therefore, to receive a guest, either friend or foe, there is no expense. It is only a question of good manners. So, okay, next paragraph. Parikshit didn't expect a royal reception, but he did expect a straw seat, a glass of water, and some sweet words. And the lack of these things astonished him. So in a sense, he was right to feel angry when he needed water urgently. But still, for such a devotee to react like that, it's very astonishing. It's Krishna's arrangement. Oh, and Prabhupada says, therefore we must accept it was ordained by the Lord, just to help him become detached from family, government, and become surrendered soul to Krishna. And sometimes Krishna, well, we read that already, creates such situations to bring a devotee closer. But outwardly, it's a frustrating situation. I don't know if any of you have experienced that. I have. What an incredible situation when I just was taking to Krishna consciousness. What? I mean, it was really out of this world. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the devotees of the Lord are always under the protection of the Lord, and in any condition, frustration or success, the Lord is the supreme guide for the devotees. The pure devotees therefore accept all conditions of frustration as blessings from the Lord. 29. O Brahmins, the king's anger and envy directed toward the Brahmin sage were unprecedented, being that circumstances had made him hungry and thirsty. So, yeah, for a king like Parikshit to become angry like this was unprecedented, because he knew that Brahmin sages, children, women, and old men are beyond the jurisdiction of punishment. But now he wants to punish Shamaka Rishi, who's a great Brahmin sage. But also, the king should never be considered a wrongdoer, even if he makes a mistake. But this is all happening by the will of the Lord. So the king is right to punish citizens for neglecting him, but because in this case the culprit was a sage, it was unprecedented. Because the Lord is never envious of anyone, and a pure devotee is not envious of anyone. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the only justification for Maharaj Parikshit's behavior is that it was ordained by the Lord. And verse 30. While leaving, the king, being so insulted, picked up a lifeless snake with his bow and angrily placed it on the shoulder of the sage. Then he returned to his palace. So Prabhupada says, it was a tit for tat. Because otherwise, Parikshit would never do such silly things. It's just silly. Yeah. These things happen amongst silly people. But for someone like Parikshit with a Brahmin sage, it's unprecedented. So Prabhupada concludes the purport, it so happened by the will of the Lord. What can you say? 31. Upon returning, he began to contemplate and argue within himself whether the sage had actually been in meditation with senses concentrated and eyes closed, or whether he had just been feigning trance just to avoid receiving a lower kshatriya. So in the purport, Prabhupada begins by saying that actually Parikshit, as a devotee, as is natural for a devotee, didn't approve of what he had done. Yeah. And Prabhupada says, repentance comes in the mind of a good soul as soon as he commits something wrong. So then Prabhupada makes the point, both Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Jiva Goswami say it was not karma, it was the Lord's arrangement to call Maharaj Parikshit back to Godhead. Second paragraph. So Prabhupada begins by referring to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. It was the Lord's will, and by his will a frustrating situation was created. So the plan was, Prabhupada explains, plan was Parikshit's cursed for his so-called misdeed by an unqualified Brahmin boy infected by Kali Yuga, so that Parikshit would leave home and then meet the Bhagavatam, meet Shukadev, and then the Bhagavatam would be presented. Because the Bhagavatam, it's so important for this to happen nicely, because the Bhagavatam gives fascinating insights into the Lord's pastimes, like the Rasa Leela, which if properly heard, dissuades people from mundane sex life and persuades them to take up devotional service. So therefore the pure devotee's frustration elevates him spiritually. So Arjuna and the Pandavas had frustrations with the Kauravas. Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, but that was the prelude to the Bhagavad Gita. Without that, who knows how Bhagavad Gita might have been spoken, and it would be very hard for it to be spoken in such a sort of dramatic situation which drives the points home. So, similarly, this situation with Parikshit was only a show because Parikshit had been unmoved. He'd endured much. Even in the womb of his mother, he was attacked by the Brahmastra. But he was unaffected, unmoved, not emotionally affected or anything like that. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the devotees like Maharaj Parikshit are powerful enough to forbear such distresses by the will of the Lord, and they're never disturbed. The situation in this case was therefore all planned by the Lord. 32. So the sage had a son who was very powerful, being a Brahmin's son. While he was playing with inexperienced boys, he heard of his father's distress, which was occasioned by the king. Then and there the boy spoke as follows. So Prabhupada makes an interesting point that due to Maharaj Parikshit's good government, a boy like Shringi could become so powerful. The Brahmins were so much facilitated. Yeah. Because he got such training as a brahmachari, and so he was very powerful even at that young age. But the thing was, Kali, the age of Kali was seeking an opportunity to get in, and the inexperienced boy gave him a chance. And so hatred, Prabhupada says, hatred of the lower orders of life began from this Brahmin boy under the influence of Kali. And thus the cultural life began to dwindle day after day. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the first victim of Brahminical injustice was Maharaj Parikshit, and thus the protection given by the king against the onslaught of Kali was slackened. 33. The Brahmin's son, Shringi, said, "Oh, just look at the sins of the rulers who, like crows and watchdogs at the door, perpetrate sins against their masters contrary to the principles governing servants." So Prabhupada gives the description, it's standard description of Varnashram. The Brahmins are the heads, the Kshatriyas the arms. The arms are meant to work under the head and the brain. And the Varnas, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, they're set up by work and personal qualities. So naturally, the son of a good Brahmin, like Shamaka Rishi, he's such a great, and the verse said, well-known Brahmin. He had a good chance to become a Brahmin, but still he has to take advantage of the opportunity of having such a good father and become a Brahmin. So, yeah. So Shringi attained Brahminical power by birth and training, but was lacking in culture because he was an inexperienced boy. And therefore, by the influence of Kali, he became puffed up with his Brahminical power, and thus wrongly compared Parikshit to crows and watchdogs. Yeah. So the king, of course, is a type of watchdog over the state, but to compare him like that is offensive. So in this way, the Brahmins began falling down by giving importance to birthright without culture. And as a result, all the other Varnas fell. Verse 34. So it's Shringi, continuing. The descendants of the kingly orders are definitely designated as watchdogs, and then they must keep themselves at the door. On what grounds can dogs enter the house and claim to dine with the master on the same plate? So Shringi knew that the king, somehow he knew that Parikshit had asked for water, and that the father, in a certain sense, had been impertinent, inhospitable. So, yeah. So he tried to justify that Maharaj Parikshit was a dog who couldn't drink from Shamika's water pot, because there would have been a water pot there, but couldn't drink from it. And this mentality of false prestige is the cause of downfall of Varna ashram. Let's do one more, 35. After the departure of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead and supreme ruler of everyone, this is Shringi, of course, these upstarts have flourished, our protector being gone. Therefore, I myself shall take up this matter and punish them. Just witness my power. So anyway, we can say very vividly, Shringi is influenced by the spell of Kali Yuga. Yeah. Maharaj Parikshit had given license to Kali to live in those certain places. And Kali now, he's looking for opportunities to spread his power. And by the grace of the Lord, he found a hole to go through in the puffed up, inexperienced son of the Brahmin. Yeah. So the boy wanted to take the position of Lord Krishna. Yes. Yeah. The upstart wants to become an incarnation. So anyway, Prabhupada makes the point, as we know, there's so many false incarnations now misleading the innocent public. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, in other words, the personality of Kali got the opportunity to reign through the son of a Brahmin, Shringi. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All right, devotees, that's it for tonight.